Dr. Moore's Diaries, Whispers from the Morgue, Episode 3. The Body Snatchers. When graves became medical supply chains. The dark history of anatomical study and the birth of modern forensic pathology. The history of forensic pathology is deeply intertwined with the macabre practice of body snatching, a grim but necessary evil that fueled the advancement of medical science. From the 16th to the 19th centuries, the demand for human cadavers for anatomical study far outstripped the legal supply, leading to a clandestine trade in corpses that reshaped medical education and laid the groundwork for modern forensic pathology. This is the story of how graves became medical supply chains and how this dark chapter revolutionized the study of the human body and the science of death. As anatomical education flourished in the 18th and 19th centuries, medical schools faced a critical shortage of cadavers for dissection. The only legal source, executed criminals, couldn't meet the growing demand. From this desperate need emerged one of medicine's darkest chapters, the era of the resurrectionists, more commonly known as body snatchers. These nocturnal entrepreneurs operated in the shadows of Edinburgh, London, Baltimore, and other medical centers, where they developed grave robbery into a grim science. Working in small teams with specialized tools, they perfected efficient techniques to extract recently buried bodies while leaving minimal evidence of disturbance. A skilled team could exhume a corpse in under an hour, carefully removing only the soil at the head of the coffin, breaking it open, pulling the body out with hooks, and refilling the grave so meticulously that morning visitors might notice nothing amiss. The economics of this macabre trade were surprisingly structured. Fresh bodies typically fetched between 8 to 16 pounds in early 19th century Britain, equivalent to several $1,000s today, with rates varying by season, condition, and anatomical completeness. Some medical schools maintain ongoing contracts with resurrectionist gangs, guaranteeing a steady supply of subjects. The most successful body snatchers could earn more in a night than skilled laborers made in months. Society responded with increasingly elaborate defenses. The wealthy installed heavy mort safes, iron cages, over graves. Cemetery watchtowers and armed guards became common. Some families hired night watchmen to protect their loved ones' graves during the vulnerable first weeks after burial. Others installed primitive grave alarms, bells or mechanisms designed to signal disturbances. The poor, lacking such resources, sometimes took turns watching over cemetery plots. The rise of the resurrectionists, 17th to early 19th centuries, body snatching or resurrectionism, became a lucrative trade in the 18th and early 19th centuries. In Britain, the Anatomy Act of 1752 allowed the bodies of executed murderers to be used for dissection, but this did little to meet demand. Medical schools in cities like London, Edinburgh, and Glasgow were desperate for cadavers, and resurrectionists like the infamous Burke and Hare in Edinburgh stepped in to fill the void. The Burke and Hare case, 1828. The most infamous case emerged in Edinburgh in 1827 to 1828, when William Burke and William Hare bypassed grave robbing entirely. They murdered at least 16 people to sell their bodies to a prominent anatomist, Dr. Robert Knox. Their discovery horrified the public, with Burke being executed and publicly dissected, a fitting irony and a warning. The case provided momentum for legal reform that had been building for decades. William Burke and William Hare were Irish immigrants who turned to murder to supply anatomists with fresh bodies. They killed at least 16 people and sold their corpses to Dr. Robert Knox, a prominent anatomist. This case highlighted the ethical and legal dilemmas surrounding the sourcing of cadavers and spurred calls for reform. The London Burkers, 1831. Another notorious case involved John Bishop and Thomas Williams, who murdered individuals and sold their bodies to anatomy schools. Their trial exposed the extent of the illegal trade and further pressured lawmakers to address the issue. The Anatomy Act of 1832. A turning point. The public outrage over cases like Burke and Hare and the London Burkers led to the passage of the Anatomy Act of 1832 in Britain, with similar legislation following in America, finally addressed the issue by expanding the legal supply of cadavers beyond executed criminals to include unclaimed bodies from workhouses and hospitals. While this legislation ended the worst of the body snatching era, it introduced new ethical problems, essentially making poverty the new criterion for post-mortem dissection. This legislation aimed to end the illegal trade in bodies by allowing unclaimed corpses from workhouses and hospitals to be used for dissection. While it reduced the demand for body snatching, it also raised ethical concerns about the exploitation of the poor, as the bodies of the destitute became the primary source of cadavers. The impact on forensic pathology. The practice of body snatching and the subsequent legal reforms had a profound impact on the development of forensic pathology. As anatomists gained access to more cadavers, their understanding of the human body deepened, paving the way for the scientific study of death and injury. The birth of forensic science. The 19th century saw the emergence of forensic pathology as a distinct discipline. Pioneers like Johann Ludwig Caspar in Germany and Sir Bernard Spilsbury in Britain began applying anatomical knowledge to legal investigations. Caspar's Handbook of Forensic Medicine, 1856, became a foundational text, while Spilsbury's work in high-profile cases like the Crippen murder trial, 1910, demonstrated the value of forensic pathology in solving crimes. The role of autopsies. The increased availability of cadavers also advanced the practice of autopsies, which became a critical tool for determining cause of death. By the late 19th century, autopsies were routinely performed in cases of suspicious deaths, and forensic pathologists began to play a key role in criminal investigations. Modern forensic techniques. The legacy of this era can be seen in modern forensic pathology, where advanced techniques like DNA analysis, toxicology, and imaging have revolutionized the field. However, the ethical questions raised by the body snatching era continue to inform debates about the use of human remains in medical research. The legacy of this dark period extends beyond its grisly details. The resurrectionist era forced society to confront profound questions about bodily autonomy, the rights of the dead, and the competing demands of medical progress and human dignity. Questions that continue to shape modern medical ethics and our approaches to anatomical donation. The dark history of body snatching is a testament to the lengths to which humanity will go in the pursuit of knowledge. While the methods were gruesome and often unethical, the practice played a crucial role in advancing medical science and laying the foundation for modern forensic pathology. Today, the study of death is a respected and vital field, but it is important to remember the sacrifices, both voluntary and involuntary, that made it possible. The story of the body snatchers is a reminder of the complex relationship between ethics, law, and the relentless drive to understand the mysteries of the human body. Today, while voluntary body donation programs have largely resolved these historical tensions, the eerie tales of the body snatchers continue to resonate as a reminder of medicine's complicated past, when the advancement of healing knowledge depended on a supply chain that operated quite literally in the shadows of the graveyard. So who owns your cells after death? Next episode, the birth of forensic pathology, when the dead began to speak.